Welcome back to Hardware Unboxed. Once again, I am joined by my co-host. We just call him Tim, I think. So, yeah.
Sounds about right.
We have Tim here, so, you know, not terribly exciting. It's just Tim. But we do have Tim here for the August Q&A. And I think we've made this well into August, or the last week of August. Normally it's like questionable as to whether it's in that month or not, depending on your time zone. Anyway, we've made it, so hooray for us. You guys gave us, I think, over 300 questions. So obviously we've picked the ones that were most popular or most interesting, and let's go get into those now. All right, first question here. Do you really need to buy a Ryzen 3600 if you are interested in products such as the Radeon 5700, 5700 XT, and NVIDIA RTX 2060 Super? Or is it sufficient to go with a Ryzen 2600? Think from a value perspective. Yeah, this one's pretty simple to answer, really. For those kind of cards, the Ryzen 5 2600 is certainly sufficient. There's really no questioning that. I think right now you can get it for like $140 US, so that's pretty awesome.
Good price for 2600. Yeah.
I think even in Australia it's a good price. It's like $200 Australian, so you really can't go wrong with that price. And as you say, with a mid-range GPU, you're not really going to be CPU bottleneck there. You still have 6 cores, 12 threads. So if you want to save that 60-ish dollars US, then I think I'll leave it at that. All right, this one was one of the most upvoted questions, so that being the case, we won't skip over it. Even though, well, whatever. In Australia, do GPUs sag upwards? Well, yes, obviously they do. Move on.
All right, the next question. Should I bother with DDR4 3200 for gaming on an R5 3600, or should I just go 2666? Also, should I get 8 gigabytes or 16 gigabytes? Well, I think for 8 gig versus 16 gig, at this point in time, you really should be going 16 gig for modern titles. 8 gig is kind of the bare minimum that you can sort of scrape by with. Go 16 gig. What about the 3200 memory? It's not that much more expensive to buy, is it?
Well, it's a tough one. I think I had a look the other day. It's like $60 for CL16 2666, or it's like $10 more, so $70 US for 3200 CL16. So fairly similar timings, I'd imagine there. For the $10 more, I think it's worth getting the 3200. It's probably better quality memory. At the same time, sometimes it can be the same memory, so you can just overclock it. But memory overclocking and tuning and all that can be a bit tedious, So if you're not keen on overclocking, I'd just get the 3200 for $10. It's certainly worth getting. Of course, if pricing in your region varies and it's much more expensive, then I suppose just get the 2666 memory. But the Zen 2 processors, their official memory spec is 3200. So realistically, like 3000 to 3200 is probably the slowest sort of memory you should go with.
Next question. How much time until DDR5 comes to gaming PCs? If someone is planning to build in 6 months' time from now, should we use DDR4 or wait? DDR5, that's not even in servers yet, is it? Which tends to be like the first platform to get it before mainstream.
We won't spend too much time on this question because although it was heavily upvoted, we did address this at quite some length in the last Q&A, I think it was. Basically, as far as we know, DDR5 isn't expected for mainstream computing for a few years yet. As Tim says, it's not even in servers yet. And it usually hits, like, I think we said this in the last Q&A, high-end desktop platforms first before it's sort of like your AM4 mainstream sockets. So, yeah, it's at least 12 months away. It's definitely, it's likely more than that, but it's at least 12 months away. So if you're building in the next 6 months, just go DDR4. It's not terribly expensive now. We had a question a moment ago. It's like, I think it's $70 for 3200, 16 gigabytes CL16. So it's not a huge risk there. It's one of the cheaper things you'll be putting in your system, I would have thought. I mean, you pay $50 to $70 for a decent cooler. So 16 gigabytes of RAM, no biggie.
All right, Steve, can we expect Minecraft to be included in future benchmarking for new NVIDIA cards supporting ray tracing?
I saw this question and laughed. I think, short answer, no. Long answer, nope. No. I mean, for obvious reasons, it's not the most taxing thing, and even with ray tracing. And there's only a select amount of cards that support it anyway, so doing ray tracing exclusive benchmarks now is a bit pointless because we can't compare to AMD, and we also don't have many cards to compare. It's like, if you have more money, get a more expensive RTX card if you want to. But yeah, don't know if that question was asked seriously or just as a bit of a joke. But anyway, the answer's no. Fair?
Yep.
Tim agrees, so it has to be right. All right, looks like we've got another ray tracing related question, but this one is directed to Tim and myself, but I think I'll hand this one over to Tim. Love your videos. Thank you. Really helpful. Would it be possible for AMD to unlock ray tracing on current Navi cards, as NVIDIA did for some GTX cards? That was for the Turing GTX.
Yeah, Turing GTX, yep.
Okay. And if possible, what would be the probability of it happening in your opinion? How probable would it be, Tim?
Well, as for it being possible, I think it's possible. I mean, they can do it in software if they really want to. As for the probability of that happening, I'd say it's very, very low. I think the only reason NVIDIA unlocked it for GTX Turing was to incentivize you to buy an RTX card, because then you played at 10 FPS and you're like, oh, this really sucks. So then you go and think of spending more money.
It's a taster, like taste test. Like, oh, look, it looks kind of cool, but I'd like to experience it without it being a slideshow. So
is AMD going to do that and then incentivize people to go and buy an NVIDIA RTX GPU? Probably not.
Yeah.
So I think the probability of that happening, at least while while AMD has no hardware ray tracing support, is pretty much non-existent. Just, not going to happen.
I think that's fair. Next question here. Will AMD ever be able to use Thunderbolt? A lack of Thunderbolt 3 support is what holds me back from an AMD laptop. Probably that and the lack of AMD laptops, but anyway.
Yeah, that's a big issue. I mean, there's nothing that's stopping AMD from having Thunderbolt 3 support. They just need to use Intel's Thunderbolt 3 chipset or chip.
It's not cost effective.
In fact, Intel had to do the same thing up until recently. I think it's only their very latest generation of chips that's had Thunderbolt 3 support integrated. Okay. So similar situation for AMD, they just haven't done it for whatever reason, but Thunderbolt 3 will be integrated into USB 4, so the next generation of that spec, which I believe is coming late 2020. So by that time, and it's just be a platform feature, everyone will have sort of your Thunderbolt 3 support in USB 4. And then there is that motherboard that has Thunderbolt 3 support right now.
Actually, I've got it.
What is it? The ASRock
this one here.
Mini ITX one?
The TB3.
Yeah.
So, yeah, this little... I think I did a cooler benchmark on that
so
recently.
That's one of the things where, the motherboard manufacturer just goes, we'll put the chip on there, sort of a selling point. So it's definitely possible. It's just, I guess, not all that popular. All right, Steve, is the 6-core, 6-thread supposed Ryzen 5 3500 processor necessary at this point in time?
Is it necessary? Well, yeah, it's not unnecessary. 6 cores are still really good. I mean, it does a lot of things. It depends on the price as how necessary it is, but I think if they could offer that part for $150, that would be pretty good value.
Yep.
I mean, what is it now? We just mentioned it a moment ago. I think it was $140-ish for an R5 2600.
Yep.
They're not going to be around forever. Once supply runs out of those, then it's like, well, you don't want $200 being the cheapest Zen 2 processor you can buy. That said, we've still got first gen parts, so second gen could be around for a long time. But anyway, not unnecessary. It'd be good to be able to get an even cheaper Zen 2 based part. So yeah, I would like to see it, and I'd very much like to test it. I've been in AMD's ear about it, and they're giving me nothing, not confirming or denying its existence. If I had to guess, it could very well just be an OEM part, but at the same time, I think it would make sense to sort of offer about $150-ish part there. So anyway, no idea. We'll see, and we'll definitely test it if it comes out.
Next question. Why can't AMD compete with the 2080 Ti power-wise?
Okay.
I think it's a big question.
I think, so that's raw GPU horsepower, not like power efficiency, because it makes sense if he's going after the 2080 Ti. It's sort of like I think he's meaning flagship tier.
I would think so, because they're talking 2080 Ti.
Yeah, not so much just the Turing as an architecture.
Yeah.
Well, there's probably quite a few reasons. One of them, I would say, is probably just budget. So AMD can't throw nearly as much money at research and development as NVIDIA can. So AMD doesn't make nearly as much money as their competitors, at least at this point in time. So Intel and NVIDIA are both much more profitable, so therefore they can throw more money at developing new products. So yeah, a lot more research and development there. But AMD's financial position is rapidly improving, and I'd say not just from the success of Ryzen, but also the numerous business deals they've done. So what are they in? They're in Stadia now.
Yeah, they're in the consoles.
Samsung phones.
They'll be next-gen consoles. Yep.
So they've made a lot of really big, important business deals over the last few years, and in particular this year. So that'll help. And RDNA has made a pretty good step forward in efficiency and performance.
Yeah, I mean,
it's very good value what they're offering right now.
I mean, there's no reason that we can see why they can't make an RDNA-based GPU that could compete with the 2080 Ti if they just add more units into it. I mean, wasn't it the last generation with Vega 64 that was as big as they can make a chip on that architecture? The rumors were suggesting something like that.
There was an architectural limitation there. The other unknown is like how well does it scale when you add tons more cores.
There's already a lot of cores in that design. Cores.
Yeah, I know. That's why I sort of paused for a second when I said that, but I thought I will go with it. And we are expecting another reasonable, significant leap forward with RDNA 2. It's down the track, but yeah, we'll see what happens there. But I think to give credit where credit's due is NVIDIA's designs are really good. So their GPUs are hugely efficient. They've been on a bit of a tear, I would say, ever since Maxwell.
Yeah, that's when it really started to pick up for them.
Pascal really impressed me. That was just an awesome architecture. The process node was, partly because of that, but they're competing very well with the process node they're on. So yeah, I think their design is very impressive.
Okay, got a long question here from one of our YouTube viewers. Is there a big difference between the R5 1600 and R5 3600? In my country, the 1600 is half the price. Okay. Also, 3200 memory is hard to find, whereas 2666 is always on sale. Is there really a big difference? And at last, we have, lots of A320 motherboards for sale, but no B350 and B450 are double the price. So I guess you're just asking a lot of things about, which is the best value option out of those, 1600 versus 3600, 3200 versus 2666, which I think we already covered.
Well,
any question?
Yeah, let's start with the first part with the R5 1600 versus 3600. If it's twice the price of the 3600, then it's probably not worth getting. I mean, I'm kind of guessing at what prices we're talking here, but it's twice something. So let's say it's $150. No, it's $200 US. So basically $100 US.
Yep.
Don't know what market it is. Let's just say it's something like that. In that case, the Ryzen 5 1600 is worth getting, especially if you're using like a mid-range to low-end GPU, because you're not really going to notice the difference there. Of course, a lot of the benchmarks that you will see are using something like an RTX 2080 at 1080p, which exaggerates the differences somewhat. So you can, I don't want to say future-proof, but yeah, we'll go with that. So anyway, it depends, but yeah, for half the price, I'd get the 1600. It sounds like you're in a pretty tough market based on what you were saying about memory and motherboards.
Yeah. I mean, you're saying here no B350 and B450 being double the price of A320. A320, does that even support overclocking?
No.
So you'd definitely be wanting to go B450 if you're getting a 1600.
They did update the BIOS so they can support 3rd gen Ryzen. But yeah, you're right about the memory.
B450 is a much better platform than A320.
Or 350 or 450. But yeah, if you can get a B350 or 450, or I don't know what market you're on, how long you have to wait. But yeah, the 1600 is fine because you can always upgrade later, and that's why the motherboard's kind of important. If you can get a decent motherboard, that really saves you a lot of hassle down the track. And then the memory, just whatever you can get. But yeah, it'd be interesting to know what market you're in.
Yeah.
So do a bit of research. But anyway, another looks like ray tracing related question here. Do you think that ray tracing in its current form on a 2080 and below deserves extra money? So is it worth paying a premium for the lower end cards because of ray tracing? And should I buy or wait for a GPU purchase, as next year we've got the Intel Xe? I don't know, how do you pronounce that?
I think it's Xe.
Xe.
Yeah.
I actually haven't really followed much of that yet. And Navi 20 is coming. So I don't think we've had confirmation of that. Well, yeah, we sort of have. Yeah.
So on ray tracing, I mean, we've seen all our videos, hopefully, on RTX content Nothing really too much has changed, I don't think. I'm planning on doing a bit of a revisit of it, but it still doesn't seem like it's worth specifically spending more money on. It's a nice bonus to have if you buy an RTX GPU. You can try it out as a bit of a demo of the technology and where it's going to go in the future. But as for actually spending more money on it, it's probably not something I think is worth it. Should a buyer wait for GPUs such as Intel Xe, Navi 20? As with all these questions, it's hard to say what that's going to bring. I think the GPU market's pretty good at the moment. AMD's latest GPUs are competitive, which means that in general, from that market of the 5700 down, it's very, very competitive at the moment. So it's a good time to buy. I wouldn't say necessarily you have to wait, but it will definitely be interesting to see what can be done with next gen Navi and what Intel will do. So yeah, I don't think it's worth waiting, but I think there's a lot of exciting things that are going to happen.
Yeah, look, I agree with all of that. I mean, the 2080 at the moment, it's an outgoing product. You can get some for pretty good prices. Like I think I saw some for $630, which is actually pretty good value. So it's worth considering one at that price. Otherwise, we're getting a lot of AIB 5700 XTs hitting the market now. They're exceptionally good value. They kind of wipe out the RTX 2070 Super. They definitely wipe out the RTX 2060 Super. So yeah, if you're worried about value in that, and yeah, it's certainly not worth getting those cards for ray tracing. You'd just be getting them because they offer you a good cost per frame or the level of performance you want. So yeah, 5700 XT is what I'd be looking at. Otherwise, just sort of, see if you can get a 2080 at a good price. And then it gets very much into the point of diminishing returns with like a 2080 Super or a 2080 Ti. This is a good question, this one. When will we see Tim benchmark a graphics card and Steve do a monitor review? Yeah.
I'd like to see your monitor review.
I'd be like, so the button here turns on, here's the resolution, the refresh rate, and the picture looks pretty good.
I trust you to plug the display port in. And then
I'd probably plug in the wrong bloody connectors or something. My monitor reviews would not hold a candle to Tim's. So, yeah. I mean, you could probably do an okay graphics card review.
Yeah.
So,
you're the expert. I'll let you.
It's more just really, there's nothing, I kind of skip over anything technical now with them because people aren't interested. We just get, it's usually a minute for a new graphics card, like a minute on specs and pricing, and then boom into the benchmarks because that's what everyone wants. So I've sort of skipped over anything else. So it's more the benchmark labor that you would have to put in.
Yep.
So a few times I've threatened to go on holiday near a release, and Tim's like, no, don't do that. So.
All right, Tristan wants some advice. He's in a bit of an awkward spot. I've got a Pentium G4560 in an MSI B250 Mate motherboard, and I'd like to upgrade. I can't decide if I should upgrade to something like a Core i5 6th or 7th gen, or should I just bite the bullet and change my platform to get a new Ryzen processor? I use my PC almost exclusively for gaming and streaming. I'm going to upgrade my GPU as well to something in the range of GTX 1660 to RX 5700, depending on what I have left over after the CPU upgrade. So, what should Tristan do?
That is a tough one. Yeah, there's no great option there, to be honest, because the Core i5s, so you've obviously got the 6th or 7th gen Core i5 options there. They're all quad cores. And we've seen now that I tested the 7600K against the Ryzen 5 1600, and it's starting to fall behind quite badly, especially for frame time performance in a lot of modern games. They really need hyper-threading, so that means you need a Core i7. And yeah, they're pretty overpriced, the Core i7s, even on the second-hand market. And I guess that's because so many people are stuck in the same position. Yep. It's like, do I just do an easy upgrade, or do I spend a little bit more and do the motherboard and all that sort of stuff? So I wouldn't recommend bothering with the Core i5. I know you've got a dual core with hyper-threading now, but then getting 4 dedicated cores is not really a huge upgrade on the same architecture. So you really want the Core i7s, and like I said, they're not cheap. I did a bit of looking around the other day on this, and it looks like you can get 6700 engineering chips for around $90 US. So, I mean, it's not far off what you'd buy like a Ryzen 5 2600 for, but yeah, $90 I think is too much. I have seen the odd one go secondhand, like not an engineering sample, like a genuine 6700 non-K sell for about $50. I think if you can get one for that price, it's worth the upgrade. But yeah, spending more than that, I don't think it's worth it.
Yeah,
so
and then as soon as you get a 6700, it's kind of, you've dead-ended that platform. It's kind of,
the $50 US buys you a bit of extra
Yeah.
time. You can still play modern games. You'll be close to being maxed out, but they're pretty smooth. They're pretty good still. The quad cores with hyper-threading. Of course, if you overclock it and stuff, that gives it a bit more breathing room. But yeah, as Tim says, you're sort of buying the end of the road, and another year down the track, it may be useless. So it's kind of like, do you spend, if you can get one for $50, which is kind of a,
sounds a bit rare.
You got to get pretty lucky on that one. But if you can pull that off, it's a toss up whether you should do it or what. It'd cost you about $100. I mean, this is buying new if you were to do this. So you could probably, the stuff I'm about to suggest, you could probably get it secondhand. But you can get a decent B450 board for about $100, and then you can get something like the Ryzen 5 2600 for, I think it was $140 we mentioned. Yep. So that's $240. Yeah, it's a lot more than the $50 upgrade, but it's going to last you a lot longer and give you a much better upgrade path. So it's a tough one. You are in a bit of a tough spot there as to what to do. But of course, you could also look for B450s secondhand. You might get one for $50 and then get a CPU $50. You've spent twice the money at $100, but it'll be better. So I hope we help with that one. All right, question here for Tim. Will you be reviewing the upcoming Apple monitor? It'll be interesting to see whether Apple's claims hold up under the all-seeing scrutiny of Tim.
Well, I just checked the price on the Apple monitor, and it costs $5,000 US plus $1,000 for the stand, which is just typical Apple rubbish. I would love to review it because I think any monitor that costs $6,000 and has an optional stand is worth tearing apart, at least for that stand. It'd be interesting to see how it performs, but Apple is never going to send us one, and we cannot justify spending $6,000 US on a monitor.
So a direct conversion with no Australia tax, which there definitely will be, that's $8,880 for a monitor.
Yeah.
So it'll shock some of you to hear that we don't have that kind of budget here at Harbour Unboxed to throw away on one monitor. We probably wouldn't get our return on investment on that one. It'd be great to do that content, but
if one of you guys are planning on buying one and are in Australia and want to send it to me first, I'm more than happy to review one. But outside of that, it's probably not going to happen.
Yep. All right, next one. Which should I get? RTX 2060, RX 5700, or an AIB 5700, so a custom board partner version, which is a lot more expensive than some 2060s and all reference 5700s. I'm in Australia, by the way. Fellow Aussie, cool. It's a bit disappointing right now. I suppose the 5700 custom cards, they've sort of only just come out, so there's not that many available, and the ones that are available is a bit of a price premium there. I expect them to drop down to 2600 or RTX 2060 rather, prices, I don't know, next few weeks, within the next month. But yeah, if you can't wait for that, then it might just be worth getting an RTX 2060. I mean, in terms of performance, they're pretty similar anyway, so that being the case, it might not be worth waiting for. Just get the GeForce graphics card. All right, next question. Is there any real benefit to buying RTX cards just because they have ray tracing? Should we wait for better ray tracing cards? We've sort of already addressed a similar question, but not quite this.
Yeah, so I think as we said before, is there any benefit to buying RTX cards just because they have ray tracing? Not really. You should be buying them based on their overall package, their performance, especially, value, all the usual stuff, features, etc. As for should we wait for better ray tracing cards, if you are interested in ray tracing, then yeah, I think you should. They're just not powerful enough at the moment to justify using ray tracing outside of Quake or Minecraft, if those are the games that you're really interested in. So
it's sort of a question that doesn't exist though. Like, you're not realistically going to go, well, I want to enjoy ray tracing, so I'm just not going to buy a graphics card until there's a good ray tracing graphics card. Like, nobody's going to do that. And then we're waiting for both graphics cards and the games, really. Yep. Because even if you got, say you got a ray tracing card that was 10 times more powerful than what we have now, you're still not going to be loving the experience in Battlefield 5 or Metro, because it's like, it looks a little bit better. But you want games that have way more visual impact and look, significantly better with ray tracing. So We need cards to be significantly more powerful so the ray tracing effects can be much more significant.
Yep.
So
I think that's fair.
Basically, just buy a graphics card based on its cost per frame and it's in the price range that you want.
Yep.
All right, that's going to do it for part 1. Thank you to everyone who asked a question or upvoted a question. So it went up. We knew what you guys were interested in us addressing. Of course, part 2 will be coming tomorrow, and then at some point we'll also have a Patreon Q&A. So we should be able to squeeze that in this month as well. Anyway, as always, thank you for watching. I'm your host, Steve.
I'm your host, Tim.
And we'll see you again next time.